If you found this podcast, chances are you're a high achiever and you're successful. But now you're stuck and stressed, and you realize that everything you've created hasn't given you the fulfillment and the joy you thought it would. This is where we discuss the keys of high performance mindset and stepping into the next best version of yourself. Welcome to the Positive Persistence Podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the Positive Persistence Podcast, where we bring you guests to inspire you and strategies to help you tap into your potential and become your best self. I'm your host, Ian Bowen, and today I am joined by my friend, Barrett Henson. Barrett, welcome to the show.
Ian, man, appreciate you having me. Love what you're doing, and just a privilege to be a part of it, man. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, man, for sure. As we were kind of talking before we got started, I have been looking forward to this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, you will not meet a more authentic, honest, heartfelt, truthful, transparent individual than Barrett Henson, man. You are somebody that I have admired for a very long time. And I'm glad that you took the time to have this conversation with us today. So for those of our audience, our listeners and viewers who don't know who you are and what you do, can you give us a little brief bio?
Man, I always say that, like, strip it all down. I'm a coach at heart. Like, that's just, coaching changed my life when I was young. And that was the greatest gift that was given to me, Ian. And, people who cared enough about my own development. And so that, like, to me, that's why I've always gravitated towards coaching. And, whether my first career, when I started out, coaching a project, let's call it. But really, I kind of transformed myself to being a true coach, a fitness coach. And, now, as much as I am a fitness coach, I own my own location, which is a Fit Body Boot Camp in the suburbs of Detroit.
Yeah.
And I've been blessed to also be a coach for the franchisor, and I'm the executive director of franchise development and coaching for Fit Body Boot Camp franchise. And that's maybe what I do, but still, when I strip it all the way down, man, I'm a coach at heart. And part of that, I think, is, being willing to discover different things, like be open-minded. You're going to have to be in life, because, as the older I've gotten, the more I realize I don't know things,
Yeah.
And I think that's part of being a coach. Like, you don't have to know everything. You don't have to know every single thing. That's why we have a network of people. If you look at some of the greatest organizations, sports organizations, and I kind of gravitate towards that. Let's just use football for an example, American football. You might have a head coach, but you have an offensive coordinator, you have a defensive coordinator, and they specialize on those sides. But then drill it down even further, and you have a positions coach, a defensive backs coach, a linebackers coach, a defensive line coach. You have all these aspects of it, and each one of them, like, they have to be open-minded. They have to collaborate. They have to work together, and sometimes they have to work together in things that maybe they don't fully see that this is the way, or maybe they disagree with stuff. On a little bit, but everybody wants to win. And that's the beauty, that's the common mission that pulls people together. And, for me, while I am a coach at heart, the common mission that I have been coaching towards is to provide a better future for people. And that really comes down to exactly what you're talking about, Ian, is your mindset, because I tell this, when I look at our gym, my gym, as I look at it, well, on the surface, all people see is fitness. We're actually a self-development program. And we are a self-development program, not just for clients, for our teammates too, and we focus on coaching the 6 inches between your ears, because that is the driver of everything else. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm a coach, man. And that's why I love what you're doing. And just super pumped to be a part of it. So as much as I've been coaching in the fitness world for nearly a decade here, that just hasn't stopped, and I don't think it ever will, man. That's just kind of who I am.
Yeah, your passion runs through, and it is very visible for everybody to see, and that's one of the things that I love about you. And something else I love about you as well is how humble you are. You failed to mention that, yes, you are the executive director of franchise development for Fit Body Boot Camp, which is an international fitness brand, which happens to be the fastest growing fitness brand around. And also that you are like, what is the top 2 revenue generating facility in the brand? Is that right?
That is correct. Yes, I am. And
Yeah.
whew, man, that's like kind of hard actually when I sit there to think about it, because I never actually started out to build this like massive business or whatever it was. I really started because I want to help people. That's like what I want to do, and
Yeah.
I think every aspect that I've gone to help people with, the scoreboard will work itself out, and I've been fortunate enough to get some incredible people to help that mission. And the team that I have is just absolutely incredible. And I would say that the thing that they hold the best, or the like that I'm like most just over the moon excited and elated about when I see them, is they care, man. They care so much. And when you find that, like, I just want to be around it. And I think just people want to be around that too, in general. And that feeling, and I always say this, we are in the feelings business, actually. Yeah, we're in the exercise science business for sure, but we're really in the feelings business, helping people, develop that self-confidence and those sorts of things. When you focus on the right things, the scoreboard takes care of itself. So as much as, yeah, I'm very proud of that number, I'm actually, I guess, more proud of the things that our team does to keep our attrition, which is my favorite stat. It's not actually the revenue. It's that our attrition is 1.93%. That's what it's been this. So I'm going to keep, 90 friggin' 8.1% of my clients every single month. And to me, that is only done by caring. Like, I don't understand. Like, part of me, that's like tough. And there's a book that I really love, man. Really love this book, Excellence Wins, Horst Schultz. And he talks about the 2% factor. And I just remember this. He's like, 2% of people are just hard to deal with. And that's just the reality of the situation. And so if I can keep my attrition under 2%, like, whoo, I'm winning, and that's just pretty impressive. And I always remind our team of that, because that book, to me, Excellence Wins, it's about doing the little things. It's about doing the little things. And, it starts honestly with you. Right.
Right.
And just blessed in that too, man.
So just to add some context for people who may not know, what's the industry average for attrition?
Industry average just in fitness is 28% is the industry standard. Now in boutique fitness, which is, what we do, it is about 8 to 12%. That's the industry standard. So, every month you have 100 clients, you're going to lose 8 to 12 of them. So the difference is every month, for me, I lose, 2 of them, which is pretty impressive to me. And I look at that number. That's actually the most proud number that I have, because like the business will take care of itself if I'm taking care of people. And I know that to be true. I've seen it. And that's what our team has really, really rallied behind. And, that's really, I think, like the secret sauce. And when people ask, like, what's your secret sauce? I'm like, man, I just found great people who want to help other people so much that by nature of helping people, like, we're just building an awesome business at the same time. That's just the byproduct, right? And I do think fitness is just like, it is the gateway to a better life. And I've seen it in you. I've seen it in, thousands of clients who we've helped, other franchise partners that we have in the Fit Body Bootcamp, brand, just in general. Like, man, that's just when people really, really have a purpose behind it. Man, get out the way, because that's a powerful train coming through,
Yes, sir.
So.
And so let's talk about, let's kind of move away from fitness, because that's only one way that you give back. And that's only one way that you help people. You also have founded a very successful nonprofit. And I was hoping you could share a little bit about that.
Man, I could go on all day about that. It's my gift. MI, a little play on Michigan, as I'm from it. MI-gift. And, Bryce and I, if you don't know, my older brother, Bryce, I have a younger sister, Emma. We're very close, and we grew up in a it was an interesting situation is the best way to describe it. Our dad abandoned us when we were younger. And so it made growing up a little challenging with a single mom. And, fortunately we had our grandma to take care of us and our extended family, just incredible people.
Mm-hmm.
And all going through that when you're young, when you're 5, 6 years old, all you do is, we learn as kids by looking at other things and observing, and, in that I learned that, man, we didn't have as much as maybe the other people. And that was a hard lesson to learn as a young kid, and really kind of forced us to grow up a little bit faster than maybe most. And from that lens, and, that was a challenging time, Ian, being honest, like between, the age of, let's call it 6 and 12.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just hard. Like Christmas was extremely hard. And, when I had the opportunity to open the gym in 2015, I was like, well, hey, we're going to do something about it. And so in 2015, we started, we pulled together, we just did some fundraising, and we raised $800 and we sponsored 4 single mother families. And obviously, coming from a single mother, there's a lot of heartstrings that has come through it. And, press fast forward over the last decade, what started as, 4 single mother families and $800 has now, climbed to 120 foster children. And we're going to hit $30,000 this year. And that's just from our location, doing all sorts of things to fundraise and getting the community involved, which is incredible. And, it's we're going to sponsor 120 foster kids at children. And, the thing is, we get some toys, but when we look at the list, man, it is like heartbreaking when it's like, oh, I'd love socks. I'd love a toothbrush. That's what you want for Christmas. Like, whew, like hits you. And, it does. I mean, growing up, there's this quote, Teddy Roosevelt, right? Comparison is the thief of joy. And that was something that, went through that, younger, and it probably stole a bit of joy. But good friend of ours, Matt Dispute, said this, and this still echoes in my head, is he's like, why don't you be the mentor that you wanted at that age? And I was like, light bulb, right? And that was just like, and I was already doing that, but that was just like gasoline, kerosene on the fire. Like, holy smokes, you are doing the right thing. And at the time, man, I had no idea what I was doing. I was trying to run a gym. I was trying to open a gym. And at the same time, I was just trying to do good in the community. And then fast forward, it went from 800 to like 2,000 to fast forward now $30,000. And 2 years ago, our accountant was like, hey, Barrett, man, this is really cool, but you can't be spending $25,000 at Kohl's and you're a gym. You're going to get looked at by the IRS, man. And so it's kind of like I was forced to do it. I don't want to say I had this like big grandiose idea that I'm going to start this 501c3. It just grew so many the legs grew so much. It took off, and, it's kind of the fortunate aspect. And sometimes, man, it's just like what's the saying? Like, you don't have to see the whole staircase. Sometimes you just got to take the first step, and you build the rocket ship as you're going. And, that's kind of what it's been like, with my gift. And I'll tell you, man, helping people do, push-ups and squats and stuff like that is incredible, man. It hits you right here. What we do with my gift, man, being honest, I break down every year, like afterwards, because it's a huge like bit of just energy you are putting in, and we fundraise all year round, and one of the things that we do on Pi Day, March 14, our coaches, you can pie us in the face, man. Like, that's what we're fundraising. We're doing every little bit. But as we go through, and I always say this, every dollar counts, because every dollar's worth it. It's because 100% of that is going to kids. And for me, that is like the ultimate thing. And I think I compare that too with like boot camp, man. When you're concentrating on like so much on helping other people, like your cup gets so full.
Yeah.
And I tell you, the cup that we have is just like freaking overflowing. And it's just that's how the growth has really come. So, when I think about like what has been, the it factor, it's always been like going after something and not caring about what the scoreboard is actually going to actually show up at. Like you care so much about it, about like, hey, you're just going to do good. You're going to do the right thing. Scoreboard's going to take care of itself. And I'll tell you what, like you got to have a plan with that. I'm not saying be, kind of willy nilly about going into things. Oh, I'm just going to go do this. You need to have a plan, but you got to have focus. And when you have that sort of energy and drive and somebody can kind of point you in a direction, like, again, it's like that train, you can get out the way or you can get on board. And with this one, I like to get on board. So special, man.
It is special. You've done so much good in your community, and obviously your community gets behind you and supports you in what you do.
It's $160,000 over the course of the last almost decade. That's how much we've raised. And when I think about like all the stats, whatever, that one is the one that I like hang up. And if you ever come to our facility, and I know you have, we actually changed the chalkboard. We have a new sign, but it says right there, because you support Berkeley Fit Body Bootcamp, you have also supported $160,000 to charity. And that's the sign. Like, that's who I am. I want people walking in to see that, because you're about to go get it in that gym. We're going to dial it up. We're going to have some fun. We're going to put you through some exercise science and a great workout, but we do it with purpose. And it's more than just exercise science. And, that's why that like attracts like. And I firmly believe you keep doing that. You keep doing that. And just all of a sudden, you're going to find these great opportunities in your life, man. And that's kind of what's happened to me. And I'm fortunate for that.
Barrett, where does your passion come from to help, to give back? Like where do you think that, what seed does that grow from for you?
Ooh, man. Dude, that's tough. That's a tough one, man. Cause I look at my life, back, and I kind of alluded to, our dad, kind of leaving and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And during that time from like 6 to 12, I had a really, really hard time emotionally. I took it the hardest. From the bird's eye view, I took it the hardest. I had the most, let's call it just outbursts or, behavior issues when I was a young kid. I was angry. It just pent up. And a lot of that's just, stems from abandonment, quite honestly. Mm-hmm. Now unpacking or unpeeling the onion, the older I get, a lot of those behaviors were, behaviors around abandonment. You're searching for love and acceptance and that sort of thing. Yeah. And I learned at a young age that, I had some decent skills at sports, and I knew that if I could tunnel vision them into certain things, I could get mentorship. And for me, that was actually the mentorship that I craved the most, and that's why I fell in love with sports. And this is just kind of what I see now that I'm, nearly 40. I get to sit back and go that on one hand, the hardest thing that happened to me, the abandonment, allowed me to have tunnel vision to focus on something that would make me better. And sports made me better. It taught me how to win, taught me how to lose, taught me that if I didn't like the result, I could do something about it. I could train more, I could practice more, I could do all these other things. I had control. And I learned that. And I was guided by an incredible group of coaches in my life. And that's where it kind of pulls me, because in that moment of vulnerability, when I was in 5th grade, when I was in 7th and 9th, and you just name it, you keep going, I felt vulnerable. Every one of my peers. And as you get older, you realize that, hey, divorce is a normal thing. And, some people don't have parents, but as a kid, you didn't realize that. Mm-hmm. But, when I'm going through, every one of my buddies would go home and their dad would help them. I had nothing. So at that point, I was like, man, I just why can't, I want to do something for me. And if I can do something for me, well, I can do something for somebody else. And I think that gap, the gap and the pain and the separation that I had as a young kid was like, I don't want anybody else to have to go through that. Now, I know that might sound a little silly, because at the same time, the exact reason or the catalyst that allowed me to develop, the resilience was that abandonment. So I can't be too mad. I can't be too mad about it being older. At the time, I certainly was. But I had this said to me one time, and it really, really hit. And is from one of my mentors. And he goes, listen, Barrett, he goes, you know that the only difference between a superhero and a villain is what they choose to do. Both the superhero and the villain have one of life's most challenging burdens placed on them, that's placed on them to break them. And it either breaks them and they, turn and pivot and they choose the dark and they choose to, hurt people, or they see that and they choose the other path. And when that path, they choose to utilize that pain as fuel to make sure it never happens again. Mm-hmm. And to me, I had this, and realizing this later, I wish I could say, hey, there was one thing and I was like, boom, that's the way it was. It's just actually, it was like what happened. And as the older I'm getting, or the older I am, and I just kind of look at my life as objectively as I can, I see what happened organically. And it was like, I didn't make a choice, like a definitive line in the sand. It just happened because of what I kept doing. I kept going in. I kept trying to get a little better. I kept trying to understand myself. I kept trying to work on me and develop this skill, get smarter, get better, get whatever. And the byproduct of that was, as I was helping myself, I was also helping other people, because I didn't want someone to be on the outside too. Like I felt, being on the outside, I wanted to bring them in. I wanted to make sure that they felt part of a team. And I think that's also too why I resonate, or I'm drawn to teams so much, because that's the group of people who you choose. You get to choose that group of people who you're surrounding yourself with. And, when I realized I had the power to make that choice, I wanted to choose good people to be around, because as much as I wanted to help them, I knew like I wasn't that good. I needed help too, and I think that's the value exchange that is important in life. Because, you and I, like, dude, we didn't build our business by ourselves. We had help. At the same time, you need to do the work, and everybody around you needs to do the work. But when they see you do the work, you're setting an example, you're setting an influence, and you're saying, hey, this is the model that we want to emulate. Whether or not you actually intentionally carve out 3 hours, 4 hours to help somebody, just by nature. It's like in boot camp. If you and I are working out next to each other and I'm tired as heck, and I turn and peek out my corner of my eye and you keep ripping out the burpees, guess what, man? I'm going to keep going because of your influence. And when you have that, like, man, just great things start to happen. Opportunities show up. And, that's what I call magic, those opportunities. And so I think back at, my gift, my 501c3, that was freaking magic how it happened. Like it just happened, and I wish I was like, oh, I had this great idea. I'm going to found a charity. Like, no, I just want to do good. And in the process of doing good, it's like, hey, strap a broom along your back and sweep as you go along. You'll figure it out. Let's go. That's kind of been, I guess, a fortuitous, situation for me. And, just by nature of working on myself, I've realized I want to help others in the process, man.
Yeah. You mentioned a word a couple minutes ago, resilience.
Yeah.
And, knowing a little bit about your story already, I'm hoping that you can give us some insight on, well, at least help others who may be in the same scenario. I mean, going back to your childhood, coming from the situation that you've already described, and knowing this myself about you, being originally from the South, coming up here to the Midwest. You're 5, 6 years old. You've got a Southern drawl. You're the new kid on the block, which means you're the odd man out. Without your father, you're a middle child. Like, you got the cards stacked against you.
Yeah.
You're living, in a 3-bedroom home with your mom and your grandma and your siblings, and not a whole lot of, not a whole lot of luxury in your life. It's time to ask yourself, when was the last time you prioritized you? Did you know that research shows that nearly 85% of high performers struggle to maintain a performance mindset while juggling the demands of work and personal life? Those who actively prioritize their performance mindset and personal growth are 30% more likely to achieve their goals in business and life. If you're feeling crippling stress and anxiety, or if you're feeling guilty when you take a moment for yourself, or if you're stuck in the grind and feeling burnt out, you're not alone. Many of us yearn for more, but struggle with the fear of being judged or feeling selfish. And you want to step into the next best version of yourself. That's why I created the Rinse Method, which got me from paraplegic to marathon runner, backed by science-based proven strategies and now customized for high performers like you. If you're stuck and stressed and want clear steps that you can implement today to move forward, make sure you visit thepositivepersistence.com to download our free Rinse PDF. So, at that young age, how does somebody who is underneath all those rocks climb out, go through high school, go to college, go to Albion College? I'm going to throw that out there because that's my dad's alma mater as well.
Yeah, Grits, baby.
Play football and, come out and, be successful in business, be successful in life. And now, are super successful in all of your adventures. So what is that key or that spark for that resilience that, if you could tell somebody these are the things that really helped me succeed as I look back as a young man, what are the things that kind of helped you move forward?
Man, that is an incredible question, man. And I wish I had a single boom, 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 right? And I do have some thoughts that I want to share, but I also realized in the process of this, and we're always so focused on what happens in our own life that oftentimes we forget about everything else, that's happening. And I told this story, one time, and Bryce and we were down in the South. I had a horrible Southern drawl, man. It was, not to say horrible Southern, that's not the right way to describe it. It was thick, man. It was thick. And especially being a kid in the Midwest, everyone was like, whoa, where did you come from? Right. Right. And so, I was the butt end of a lot of jokes, going on, which is tough. It teaches you resilience right away. But I will tell you, that first day of school was so backwards, man. I was deer in the headlights and nervous as heck. Bryce, we almost got off at the wrong school because our school buses shared. Bryce grabbed me by the hand. He's like, I'm going to walk you. He's in third grade. I'm in first. He walks me to the door of my teachers. And he looks and he's like, oh yeah, okay. You're Mrs. Waterman. This is my brother, Barrett. He's in your class. I'm going to come back at 3:30 and pick him up. Right. And like that, Bryce left and went out. And I was nervous as heck and this and that. And I was telling this story. This is about 15 years ago. It was the first time I told the story publicly. I was telling it because some people asked me and I was like, yeah, man, it was scary. It was sad. It was this. And Bryce was there. And as soon as I finished, Bryce turns, he goes, if you think you were scared, how do you think I felt? And I was 25. And that was the first time I ever thought of that story from his perspective. The older brother who feels the burden of this, walking through, where's my kid brother? And at that point, honest to God, it was perspective. Mm-hmm. And at that time, being honest, growing up, I had a chip on my shoulder, man, for sure. And it was because I'm less than, abandoned, all these things. I'm less than. So it was a constant need to prove myself. Mm. And I also realized, for me, if I could prove to myself that I was capable of doing this, I couldn't be stopped. And that was it. Because when I was young, and, our friends, hey, you want to go to McDonald's, whatever, Burger King, whatever, you're riding your bikes in the neighborhood, you can't go anywhere because you don't have money, right? And at that point, that hurts. You're just like, well, you guys go buy your milkshakes. We're Bryce, we're going to sit here and we have no money, right? So, okay. And that pain hurts. You don't realize it. We're like, oh, no, it's okay, this and that. Or we couldn't buy trading cards or whatever it was as a kid. Yeah. I just felt hopeless. I felt like nothing in my life I could control. And at that point, I was like, I'm going to work like heck to control every aspect that I possibly can that's going to make things better. And for me, it started with, okay, the things that I can control, school. I know that if I can do really well in school, that's going to allow me to do other things. And so I focused on being the best student I could. And then I also realized, by nature of being good at sports, I would get positive male attention from coaches and things like that. So I was like, great, I'm going to be the best at school and I'm going to be the best at sports. These are the things that I'm going to get really good at. Video games gave me nothing. Like, I wasn't like, oh, no one was giving me praise, for video games. I went for things that were going to get me recognition, coaching, and guidance, because I was lost. And that's honestly what for me, it came down to, what skill can I work on that is going to make me better, more attractable, or more attractive in terms of other things.
Yeah.
And I looked at it as, well, if I was really good at baseball or I was really good at football, well, I'd always be picked first. And that was the mindset that I had. If I'm really good at that, I'll win on the playground, I'll win in the schoolyard. And then once I got old enough to start working, and I could, finally afford to buy, something small, go to the movies, at 14 years old, Bryce and I were refereeing soccer. You couldn't even legally work, but I was, refereeing soccer so we could make money, right? So we could do something. But as soon as I had that, all that taught me, like, the output of that was self-confidence. I didn't realize it at the time, but it was proving to myself that I'm willing to do something. I'm willing to step out. And all of those little micro steps, that's the emotional muscle that it continued to build. I look at it as, when I was in that point where I didn't know what to do, I chose to work on a skill that would make me better. That would make me better. And at the time, it was probably, being honest, a little misguided, right? Because I knew I was just getting attention, because there's other ways you can get attention. You can be a bad kid. You can get in trouble. Like, you get attention that way.
Yeah.
But I realized, for me, I was just fortunate. That was the attention that I knew would be beneficial, because all that attention gave me opportunities. All of a sudden, I had buddies' dads being like, hey, can you be on our travel baseball team? Like, can you be on our this? It was like I was being courted now, because I had developed these skills. And, for somebody who's going through something that is like, oh my God, this is, when you're going through something, like, it doesn't matter what it is, that pain is real to that person. And that's it. There's no like, oh, that doesn't hurt. That doesn't really hurt. It's like, no, it totally hurts to that person, because you don't know what they're going through in that time, And so when I look very much at what I've gone through, at the same time, it was very painful for me. But the reality was, there are so many people who had it way worse still, and, who need help. And for me, if I can be a little bit of glimpse of light or hope or this, that can help somebody else pull themselves out, like, that's the magic. Because it's not about, and I think, when I was a kid, it was always about like, oh, save this person. And of course, I still, I want to.
Yeah.
But the older I've gotten, it's rather than necessarily pulling somebody out, why don't you give them a hand to give them the skills so they can pull themselves? You still give them the guidance, you give them the push, you give them the momentum, the springboard. But like, that builds the self-confidence. And if I'm being honest, like, that is what I needed most at that time. I didn't know it. I thought I needed attention, but what I needed was to develop was self-confidence, because that is what I believe, those go hand in hand with that resilience. Because like, the more you can have that self-confidence, the more you can stay in the game long enough to outlast. And I think that's what happens a lot of times, especially just in young people as they're developing. They're figuring out what their pain tolerance is. And everybody's pain tolerance is different. It's not right or wrong. It's okay. But you can work on your pain tolerance. You can put yourself in difficult growing opportunities that cause you to have a bit of resilience, right? It's not just you're going to throw yourself into the deep end, but you take on bigger projects. That develops a bit of resilience. And what it really develops is self-confidence. And the more self-confidence you have, the more resilience. I believe they go hand in hand. So you work on both. And to me, that's where, like, again, you become this natural, like, person that will pull people with you. It'll pull, like, it'll match. And Ed Milet talks about the thermostat, right? Like all of a sudden you'll turn someone's thermostat up like 2 or 3 degrees, and all of a sudden they're doing things that they've never done. And that was just because they were within your influence. So the more that you can do that, I think the more you'll also, help others.
I love that, man. And having a lot of kids, we have 6, Dana and
Yeah.
you, and raising a lot of young humans and trying to teach them, that the easy way isn't always the best way. As you describe it, what I'm hearing you say is you need to put yourself in those, what my father would have called character building situations, right?
Yes.
To kind of find out what you're made of.
Oh, totally.
I believe it was Les Brown who says that when you come up against adversity, that shows a man or woman who they really are.
Totally.
Like how you are going to respond. And, from your story that you're telling, which is, it's fascinating to me that you were looking for that affirmation, and that affirmation gave you that confidence to continue to focus. So it's almost like this circle of, if I achieve, then I get affirmation. If I get that affirmation, I want to do it more. So I'm going to drill even harder in so I can be even better. And it kept going and going.
You're absolutely right. And here's the thing. On one hand, that is a superpower. On the other hand, when not paid attention to, that can become, a monster of its own. Mm. When you're seeking the wrong affirmation. And that's something that, I've learned a few lessons, hard lessons along the way, about that. And I will tell you, every time I learn that lesson, it is like getting hit upside the head. And you're like, this hurts. Thank you. Now it's hard to say thank you in the moment. But it grounds you and levels you. And you're right. And sometimes, I speak with, my life coach, Dr. Kevin, who's like, hey man, that was an amazing coping mechanism that you had at the time. And it's still powerful. It is, when used correctly. And that's the most important thing, is understanding, when you have to, no, what am I actually chasing? Why am I chasing it? And if you're chasing it for the right reason, heck yeah, use that momentum and go. But if you're not, that's one time where you got to pick your head up, take a step back and go, hey, like, check yourself for a hot second here, because you're chasing the wrong thing. And don't get me wrong, I'm human. I've had that happen. And I tell you what, those are usually the lessons that you don't really want to learn, but you at the same time, you want to learn them,
Yeah. And that brings me back to a quote that I heard you say, and dealing with those lessons, and is that every struggle in life prepares you for the next one.
The next.
But that's only if you're paying attention.
You're absolutely right, man.
Right. Everything that we go through, every experience that we have, I firmly believe that if you are paying attention, you will learn something from it.
Totally.
Especially the ones that are struggles.
Always. And I think those are the ones, and like, think about this, man, like COVID, when you fast forward 20 years, people are going to be like, oh my God, that was such a social experiment. We lived it. We lived through this, right? And I'll tell you what, I learned, and I know you did, our entire brand did. We learned so many lessons that I did not want to learn. I didn't want to learn them, but I'm so grateful. So when I sit back, and this is nuts of me to say, if the April 2020 version of Barrett heard the, we're doing this in December 2024, version of Barrett say, dude, COVID is the greatest gift that you're going to have in your business and your self-development. Right. I would be like, dude, 2020 Barrett, you are smoking, crack, man. Yeah. What are you doing? Yeah. That's what I honestly would have said. But the reality is, chances are the majority of lessons that you actually learn, what do they say? The best lessons are caught, not taught. And when you go through that adversity, it builds the character for the next thing that you're about to overcome. And that's what COVID did for us, man.
Yeah, yes, that was like the ultimate character builder, right?
Yeah.
But again, it's you could like we say, you can pay attention to every situation, but also it's what lens that you choose to look through,
Totally.
right? And you've kind of already mentioned this, but it's how you look at that situation, and it's like that or the superhero and the villain.
Yep.
Which way are you going to choose to go with this scenario or with this experience that you've had, especially the bad ones, the rough ones? You can't choose to cower and do the why is me and why did this happen? What am I going to do? And kind of give up or go the other route.
Yeah. And man, it's so true. And there's and I know you know Jocko Willink, and dude, just an incredible mindset and a mindset coach too. One of our location's core values is glass half full. Like, be like lightning. That's what we always say. Be like lightning. You're gonna have a jolt. You're gonna have some energy, but it's Jocko's good. And when that little 2-minute clip, when the Jocko's good, that's what we think about when it comes to glass half full. No. Hey, this happened. You didn't want it. Good. That gives me another chance to practice. That gives me another chance, another rep, right? It's making sure you look at the silver lining in that gift, because it is a gift, and sometimes you got to dig for the gift. You really got to find it.
You got to squint to find that silver lining, but it is there.
It is, man.
Yeah.
And I think that's been, and it's still something that I work on myself, and seeing that, and just knowing myself, my own behavior patterns, and my own tendencies. I'm a very task oriented person. Oftentimes I will look at the task and I will see blemishes before I see opportunity, and that's something that I have to consciously work on. And I think some of that too was, being a little bit younger, getting burned sometimes when I was, 5, 6, 7 in certain situations, that it's almost like I have like the antennas up to a certain extent. So there is a bit of, for me, that's a developmental, path that I've really been working on, especially the older you get and you find those opportunities to really say, hey, were you being too much of a stickler here? Or what could you have learned? How could you have approached this a little bit differently?
Yeah.
And that's what leadership really is, in my opinion. It's looking in the mirror, actually, and saying, hey, how can I be the glass half full when everybody else isn't? And again, that's something that you do sometimes have to work on that muscle. And it's like working out when you don't want to, man. Sometimes you still got to do it.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Again, Barrett, just talking to you and listening to, where you are coming from the words that you use and how you use them, I feel that you are a very, and correct me if I'm wrong, like emotionally connected and driven individual. Would you say that's fair?
It is a fair statement. I'm going to say, actually, for people who know me. And it's very interesting, for people who really know me, because I am a very driven. A lot of times, as people from afar, they see and they look at my work ethic as ambitious. So you have this ambition and this, and you're just going and going and going.
Yeah.
And yes, I am ambitious about doing great things. But the more people that get to know me, and we know personality, matrix, and we follow take flight learning, and eagle, owl, dove, and parrot. My dove, my S in the disc scale is actually very huge. It's huge, and that's the driver of why I do everything, is the love for people, the love to helping people. So, but more often,
you may not know what the S or the dove is. If I can just interrupt you there, can you expound on that for us?
Yeah, great. And appreciate that. And DISC, it's just a personality assessment, and it's just, it's a spectrum, right? We all have, high D or being, direct or dominant is the D, the I interactive, the S supportive, and the C conscientious. We all have those aspects in us. It's a sliding scale. And for me, that S, or the supportive, or the dove, is really, where it comes, or, hey, you want to help, you care about people. And that is something that more often than not, I think people see it. They see, because the mission, all the work that I do, whether it's the charity, whether it's fitness, it's always about helping people. But I really like when people start to have conversations and you start to peel back the onion, and people start to see, and as soon as I start talking about my childhood and kind of the hardships that I've had in childhood,
Yeah.
I think people start to realize why I do it. And for me, I feel, and if I'm being honest, I feel a little bit of my childhood was taken away. I grew up a little too soon.
Sure.
And that's the one chance that kids have to be kids. And I just want to prolong that and preserve that with kids. And if I can do that to help them, like, that's the lens that I look at. And I look at the same lens with our clients. If I can help them, if I can keep them in the game for just long enough where they develop that self-confidence muscle, I'm going to change their life, right? And it's just, I want to keep them in the game for as long as they can just get that one bit of traction. Because at the end of the day, it's actually not me who does it, or you, or anybody else. We're just the person giving the opportunity. They're the ones who do it, but I can influence that. You can influence that. We can influence that. And for me, it's funny. So as ambitious from the outside as people see, deep down hiding in there is this dove that wants everybody, like, who wants to help themselves. I want you to win so bad. And I'll give you the shirt off my back if I think it's going to help you win and catch that little advantage. If I think that person really truly wants it. And man, that's, and I think that's because I had great coaches and mentors in my life who did that for me.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I look at Coach Kelly, Coach Zatkowski, like down the list of people who I've had, they did it for me. And I get to give it back. I get to pay it forward, because that was a gift that, like, I changed my life. And for me to, like, sit if you're a religious person, the parable of the master who leaves, and you hold the goods, you plant the goods, or you invest the goods. And man, you don't hold that gift. You don't hold that gift. You plant it, you water it, and you let it grow. Because if you can make that grow, dude, it's just going to make a better life for a lot of other people. And that's what was given to me. And I want to make sure I can do my part and give it to others.
Well, you are definitely doing that. And now I see why you quoted Simon Sinek, and I see why this quote resonates with you. And that quote is, when people are financially vested, they want to return. But when people are emotionally vested, they want to contribute. And it is clear that you are emotionally vested in what you do in your mission and everything that you do in your personal life, your daily life, and with Fit Body Bootcamp, because you contribute.
It's one of the nicest things and the nicest compliments that somebody could ever give me. And I say this, that's an incredible one. And the other one is when somebody says you're an incredible teammate. Those are the two things, because I think, it's that Simon Sinek quote hits me, because that contribution and the desire to contribute, that's what makes good teams. And it's not superstars that make good teams. It's people who live that value, the contribution value. And that's when people are unstoppable. And that's who I want to surround myself with, good people like that who want to contribute. And I've been blessed to do that. And I've been trying to do that as much as I can. I see it from you, from Dana, and from a lot of people. And, that reciprocity is just, it fills the heart, man. And that's the greatest thing. So,
man. Well, Barrett, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the show today. And for our listeners and viewers, if you guys have been paying attention, you see why this man is such a special person and is an amazing human being. And Barrett, I want to give our listeners and viewers a chance to kind of, how do they hook up with you? How do they find you? How do they find out more about In My Gift? Boot Camp?
Yeah, well, I'll make sure to send you the My Gift website. It's mi-gift. Again, it's an amazing thing. And at the end, I tell this to everybody, like, whether it's My Gift or not, contribute. Just contribute. because when people contribute, you make a better situation. It's like smiling. You smile at somebody, they smile back. It's just
Right.
naturally what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So please, that's amazing. My gift. You can find me on social media and Instagram, the Barrett Henson, or find me on Facebook for sure. At the end of the day, like I just want to help people. So if there's anybody out there who needs something, DM me, shoot me a note. Would love to help you out. So Ian, just a pleasure to be on your podcast, man. And I admire what you do and what you've personally gone through. And I'll share this before your audience goes. And I know you've probably heard Ian's story, but when he tells that story, the first time I actually heard that story, I was in the back with a box of tissues trying to keep it together because I could feel you going through it, man. And it's great people like you that, have a story to share, and that story pulls other people with it. So I'm just grateful to be a part of your life, your journey, and, grateful to be on your podcast too, my man. So thank you.
Thank you, Barrett. Feelings are mutual.
Yeah.
All right, guys, you know how we wrap these things up. We always say, stay positive, stay persistent, and remember, mindset is everything.
Heck yeah.
See you next time. Thank you for tuning in and being part of the Positive Persistence family. We're having a great time creating this content, and we truly hope it inspires you to embrace positivity and persistence in your own journey. If this podcast episode inspired you or entertained you, scroll down, hit those stars, and leave a comment or two. Your 5-star reviews and shares encourage us and help us grow the show. So until next time, stay positive, stay persistent, and remember, mindset is everything.